Индия, США, Великобритания, Венесуэла, Голландия. Люди из этих и многих других стран мира живут вместе с нами. Они работают, создают семьи, растят детей и просто радуются жизни в Казахстане. В нашей программе Connecting Cultures они делятся историями, которые происходили в их жизни до Казахстана и после приезда сюда. От них мы узнаем, как опыт пребывания в нашей стране изменил их судьбу.
Englishman Rowan Kennedy once arrived in Almaty from London. Rowan is a specialist in the field of international scientific projects and their management. Now he is an employee of the British Council, managing an important partnership program. The first time Rowan arrived in Kazakhstan was when he was 17 years old, on a trip to visit his father, who was a diplomat stationed in Kazakhstan. Rowan enjoyed living in Almaty, and after he finished university in London, he decided to return to Kazakhstan to begin his career. So Rowan, could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up exactly?
Yeah, so I was born in Kuwait, which is where my dad was working at the time. I guess I lived there till maybe I was about 1 or 2 years old. And then my dad got sent to Malaysia. And after that he was sent back to the UK. But most of my kind of childhood, I guess, from the age of about 6 to when I was 13, I spent in Africa. So I lived in Malawi and in Swaziland as well, which I guess some people don't know Swaziland. It's a small country, landlocked country between South Africa and Mozambique. It's a very beautiful place. So I lived there with my family until I was 13, at which point I was sent back to the UK to go to boarding school, where I spent 5 years.
I know you mentioned to us that your first experience in Kazakhstan was when you were at 17 years old. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
When my dad first told me that he was moving to Kazakhstan, I really knew nothing about the country at all. That was maybe 2001. And the first time I came here was kind of November, I guess, 2001. And I remember I flew in. It was a very long flight. I remember getting off the plane. My first impression was kind of how cold it was. This was the middle of the night, you know, in a way that I guess these international flights back then all seemed to arrive in the middle of the night. And then the sort of overwhelming thing that sticks in my mind about the first time I came here is driving into Almaty from the airport and thinking, why on earth do they paint all the trees white at the bottom? And like, who puts the effort in to do that for every single tree? Which I now understand kind of happens in a lot of countries in this part of the world, but I still never got an answer to why the trees are all painted white at the bottom. Then the first morning I was here, I woke up and I opened the window of the room I was staying in and looked out and saw the mountains, and they were covered in snow. And maybe it was from that moment that I first thought, wow, this is a really special place.
So Rowan, you told me your first work experience after university was here in Kazakhstan. Please tell us more about that.
Yes, so when I graduated, I initially wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had studied Russian at university. I wanted to live in this part of the world. And by then I'd met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, who's from Almaty. So I moved down here without a job, really, without anywhere to live. I stayed on a friend's sofa for a while, And pretty soon I found a job at KEMAP. So I worked at KEMAP for a year and a half. I worked in the president's office. What I found there was that I really enjoyed working in a university environment. KEMAP's a great place. It's got a lovely campus right in the centre of town. It's very green, it's leafy, it's a lovely place to work. There's some really inspiring people there. So I made a lot of friends, and in that period I also got a chance to kind of indulge a lot of my hobbies, things like snowboarding, a lot of hiking, running, that kind of thing. So I had a really good year and a half there.
Were there any difficulties or struggles in getting adjusted to the life here in Kazakhstan?
Sure, there were cultural differences. I mean, I think that for me was the first time that I'd really worked in an office where most of my colleagues were from another culture, apart from me. So that was interesting. It took a bit of adjustment for me sometimes. I think it made me look at myself quite a lot, because I think really if you want to understand people from a different culture, you have to have a very good grip of your own culture and where you're coming from, and you have to understand that very thoroughly. And I think for me, when I first got here, straight after I graduated, you know, despite the fact that I'd spent time in other places, I don't think I really had that. I didn't really have that kind of understanding of what my culture was, what the kind of idiosyncrasies that go with that are, and how other people might kind of look at me. So for me, that was quite a kind of adjustment.
So could you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing in terms of work here in Kazakhstan?
So I work at the British Council. I've been here 3 months now, and I run the UK end of a project called the Newton Al-Farabi Partnership Programme. This is a joint UK-Kazakhstan government project. Our aim is to help Kazakhstan develop through building links in science, research and innovation. I work with my partners in the ministry, and I have some really good partners. We work with researchers from the UK and from Kazakhstan. We provide them opportunities to get to know each other better, to collaborate, to research together, to do projects together. And I think one of the things that I really like about what I do at the moment is it feels like we've kind of found something that people need, that people really appreciate.
So obviously you're very passionate about what you do. What are some of your goals or aspirations in your current job?
So, I mean, for me, the main thing about this work is, like I said, it feels like it's something that's really valuable. You know, it feels like we're really kind of contributing something both to Kazakhstan and to the UK, and that for me is important. You know, I've worked in jobs before where I felt that what I'm doing is great, it might be interesting on a personal level, but at the end of the day it's not bringing anything to society. I'm not really being useful. So that feeling of being useful is really important for me. I mean, in terms of what I want to achieve, I think it would be great, you know, the closer the UK and Kazakhstan get in research and innovation, I think the better for both countries. You know, if we could really build those links, build understanding, then that to me would feel like a great achievement.
So you mentioned some of the hobbies. Could you tell us more about some of the activities that you really enjoy here in Kazakhstan?
Well, I guess I kind of had different hobbies here than what I had back in the UK. Back in the UK, I was quite into music. I had my own band with my brother and with some friends. But here, I mean, I think when you live in a place, you really need to make the most of what it has. And here, for me, the most fantastic thing is the mountains. So what I've tried to do is spend as much time as possible since I've been here up in the mountains, whether that's like hiking, trekking, camping. In the winter, I really enjoy snowboarding. I try and do as much of that as I can. You know, for me, the mountains here are just this fantastic opportunity that I don't have back in London. In fact, I find it hard to think of anywhere else you could live in the world where you have these kind of incredible 4,000 plus meter mountains right on your doorstep. So the weather today reminds me a bit of being back home in London.
Is this how it is in London then?
Well, yeah, quite often. Not as much as you might think, but yeah, more often than not.
Do you get a chance to come up to the mountains quite often here?
I try to, yeah. I mean, I have almost every weekend since I got here. It's pretty much my favourite thing to do in Almaty.
Well, Rowan, we just wanted to ask you a little bit about your plans for the future then. Do you see yourself being here in Kazakhstan or?
Well, I've got a contract until the end of May. You know, I'm really looking forward to spending the rest of that time here. After that, I'll have to see. I mean, you know, I very much enjoy being here. But at the same time, I miss my friends, my family in London. And I guess there's other places I could go as well if there's work for me there. So I suppose I'm kind of relaxed about it. But I know, I have to say, I really, really enjoy being here in Almaty. I think it's a wonderful city.
Great. What are some of the changes that you've seen with your time over in Kazakhstan? What are some of the things that you've seen develop or grow?
I think one of the really positive changes that I've seen, for me anyway, has been when I first got here back in 2001, there was hardly anyone who spoke English. I mean, that was great for me at the time because I was trying to practice my Russian, but now it's like pretty much everyone I meet speaks really good English. And for me, that's a real achievement, I think.
Especially working in education.
Right. I mean, so I'm particularly happy to see that because it's something, you know, learning language is something I'm a great believer in. But I really think that's an incredible achievement that Kazakhstan's made in the past few years, is really kind of upping the level of English fluency.
So I wanted to ask you, what does Kazakhstan mean for you?
Well, I mean, good question. I first came here when I was 17, at like kind of a pretty formative point in my life. I had a really great time then. It's great to be back now when I'm a bit older, and I can see from being here, I can see this is a place I'm always going to want to come back to. You know, I mean, London is my home, sure, but when I'm here in Almaty and when I'm up in the mountains, especially, it kind of feels like this is my second home. I feel like it's a place I'm always going to return to.
Rowan builds bridges between scientists of the two countries, Kazakhstan and the UK. But I'm sure that in the heart of Rowan, this bridge has been built, the bridge between London and Almaty. After all, the city in which Rowan will always come back to is Almaty.